This is a good thing.
Yeah, let's do that.
That worked too.
We'll put Barb over there.
Over there, Dan.
Let's take your spots with her. It's a better balance.
I know.
All right, this will work. Everybody just look at me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I can't remember if it's Monday or Tuesday.
This is the board.
Well, Ben, you should
That's for the annual report. He gets a whole page. He's got. Yeah.
Just, you're not the.
Jen, I don't want to look heavy set.
I got you, George.
Okay, good.
Just email Jen what you want, you know. She'll put it there.
Now we'll just Photoshop Lloyd
Yep.
and Bill.
Maybe we shouldn't tell you guys next time that you're getting your picture taken and then people show up.
Is that picture going to be online?
Constituents.
Will it be online?
Yeah. Did you read his latest?
Hey.
Oh.
Yes, I did. I thought it was very good.
Yes.
I didn't get any paint on.
Yeah, he's such a thoughtful
Thank you
person.
all very much. I appreciate
Have a
it.
happy
Thank you,
holiday.
Jen. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy, happy.
Okay, it is now 5 o'clock. Are we ready? Are we ready? Basically, before we open up the meeting, we will have the roll call and then we will introduce Barb and then we will go from there. How's that? Barb's got 11 minutes that she's going to be presenting.
You said 30 when we met
Oh,
before.
yeah. Okay, so we are going to call to order the November 26th Park and Recreation Board meeting. And Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis,
Present.
Sayers,
Here.
Bremner,
Here.
Potter,
Here.
Woodard,
Here.
Ballard,
Here.
Bill Main,
Here.
Hugh,
Here.
Banter,
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Come on in.
Uh-oh. We have a quorum. Oh,
Get in
wait,
here.
come
Get
on
here.
in. We have a quorum. And before we do any approvals or anything, I would like to introduce Barb Bremner, who is taking Bill Nassif's spot on the board, and she is the new board member. And you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? We're
Sure.
glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. I am a resident of Des Moines since 2008. I grew up on the eastern side of Iowa. My husband and I moved here in '08 with two then elementary age kids. We lived very close to Greenwood Park and Greenwood Pond, and probably the first 5 years that I lived in Des Moines, I walked in that park daily. That's not an exaggeration. Also skated on the pond, and now this summer we've moved over to the south side and are close to Harmon Park. So I'm a cyclist, I'm a gardener, I've completed the Master Gardener classes. I was a beekeeper when we were, may have been the only south of Grand beekeeper when we were over on that side. And I'm just very excited to be here. Professionally, I am the executive director of Polk County Early Childhood Iowa, which is a state initiative to help our most vulnerable kids. And so I'm excited to see the ways that we can best make all the great things in Des Moines accessible to all families.
Very well done, and welcome to Des Moines Park and Recreation Board.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's have the agenda approval. Let's look through, see if there's any. We do have one little addition later if a council person shows up, but that we don't know at this time. But look through there, see if there needs to be any adjustments. If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Now let's go through the minutes of the October 22nd meeting. Now peruse through those if you haven't done so already.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second. Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is approved. The minutes are approved. So we will go right into board action.
Thank you. So on item A, the golf fees, badges, proposed changes, nothing has changed from last time. Just to summarize, especially for Barb being new here, at the last meeting, we had our operator, which is an outsourced service of our services, ask for a $1 increase to the cart rental fees, which started with the Golf Advisory Committee. They unanimously supported that. It's moved up. And then we're trying to add a fifth golf course to the badge or the season pass, which is Altoona's course, which becomes their course officially January 1st. With your approval tonight, we can move that forward to the City Council's Altoona's in Des Moines and Polk County Conservation.
Questions regarding the golf committee? Any questions or any additional statements on this? Okay, it looks like with no additional statements or comments, we are ready for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis,
Yes.
Sayers,
Yes.
Bremner,
Yes.
Otter,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodard,
Yes.
Pollard,
Yes.
Philmaine,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
Banter,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Action passes regarding golf fees, so that will be moved on to the council
Thank you.
for approval.
Thank you.
Okay, part B.
All right, our proposed additional aquatics hours. I'll first direct you to your communication we have. There's a chart on the second page that helps you kind of follow. It's a lot easier than trying to read about it, but Matt's also done a nice job with his team. We have some slides for the viewing public as well as you. You can look at your communication, or you can look at your screens. Matt will summarize where we left off last time with your comments, and then where we found what we believe is the happy medium. And we've tested that with a few folks around our services, and so far we feel like we have a good, I guess, compromise that has everybody's input into it.
Chair Davis, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Matt Kalsevich, Recreation Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to follow up with you regarding our pool hours proposal. The information I'm sharing with you is the information that was provided to you last meeting by our Park and Recreation Superintendent, John Hagner, talking about the different scenarios and options we explored in regards to our proposal, and we're revisiting the conversation that the Park and Recreation Board had about some of their suggestions. And as Ben mentioned, some of the things that we've explored and vetted internally to come to you today with what we did. I wanted to first follow up by highlighting some of the main factors of our decision-making as far as what we're presenting to you tonight. First and foremost, we focused on an increase to open swim hours, wanting to offer the public more opportunity. Again, we referenced in the last meeting a survey that gave us some information about there wanting to be a change, but it being somewhat split in regards to the exact change. And we think we found what could be a happy medium, at least in terms of a pilot program or an experiment, as far as what we would do and settle on potentially long term. We also wanted to expand, or at least at the very least maintain swim lesson availability, and we've done that in this scenario. We've grown each of the last few years, and we had a wonderful jump over 400 participants from 2018 to 2019, approaching the 3,000 number. So we do anticipate some growth. Ability to recruit and retain staff. Many of you have heard about the challenges over the years, and you've been very helpful and supportive in helping us spread the word about our need for aquatic staff during the summer months and the approximate 100 days or so that we operate, and really trying to create a schedule that was conducive to recruiting and retaining those people. And then a consistent scheduling across facilities for effective messaging. We verbally gave you some information last time and really wanted to highlight that this was very much part of our thought process between last meeting and now, about trying to ensure that the public knew what the schedule was, knew when they could come enjoy the facilities, that we had things set up and maintained in a way that was just easy to process, especially when we made a change during the middle of the season. So as Ben mentioned, you should have a chart there on the communication, look similar to what I have on the screen here. And first and foremost, we want to highlight, based on the budget timeline, what we're sharing with you here as far as the proposed changes for the 2021 pool season.
I'm going to pause, Matt, just for a second on that point so we all understand. Our budget is sometimes different than people understand because of the timing issue. So right now, should you make a recommendation tonight, to move this forward. It would go to the city manager, then his budget goes to the council. Those new dollars wouldn't start until July of next year, which is in the middle of our pool season, so it's hard for us to implement that. So what we're talking about tonight, just to make sure nobody shadows this too much, is a 2021 operation. Current would continue for all the calendar year next year.
Okay.
And then whatever you decide, if it's a change, if it's not the current, would be 2021.
So,
on the-
to be clear, it's not the fiscal year that ends in
June
July.
30th is the end of the fiscal year. July 1st starts the new one.
Right.
Yep.
But this is 2021, the next year.
Yep.
We're not gonna take part in the.
We wouldn't
fiscal-
change
okay.
anything this next, we'd ask you not to change anything this year. It'd be hard to educate the public with one set of rules one year, then switch it in the middle of the season. And then it'd be tough for our staffing logistics. So, not impossible, but it'd be really difficult.
Thank you, Ben, for that clarity.
Yep.
So what you see on the left-hand side of the chart there is, as Ben just mentioned, the current schedule going back to the 2019 season and what we're projecting for the 2020 season. Monday through Friday, that 1 to 6:30 p.m. time. Saturday the same. Sunday 1 to 5. Then, as we also just mentioned, the 2021 season, that May 29th projected opening date on the Memorial Day weekend through July 11th, again, using our current model. And when we facilitate evening swim lessons, our times would be Monday through Friday, so the middle column here, 1 to 6:30 p.m. Saturday, 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then 1 to 5 on Sunday. The big change, and again, I say big, but I think we've put it in a position where it should be pretty easy to process, we hope, in terms of both communication and then absorbing that, the community looking to include this in their schedule in the latter part of the summer. Starting July 12th of 2021, at the conclusion of evening swim lessons, we would add an additional hour at the 5 major aquatic facilities that we manage, still keeping the 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday time, and then the 1 to 5 p.m. time on Sunday. One of the things that I'll point out specifically is that Saturday time. Originally, in your discussion last meeting, it was talked about 11 o'clock. Our staff thought that it was relevant and important to have some consistency in terms of the maximum amount of time we might be open daily to the public. So as you'll notice, when we make the change on July 12th, we go to a 6.5 hour shift for staff. Having Saturday run from 11:30 to 6 allows us to maintain that 6.5 hour range, which is actually kind of a magic threshold in terms of staff and the ages that we work with, and when it crosses over into a time where we need to incorporate additional breaks and some other logistical things that could be a challenge. Again, going back to the thought process about staffing and retention. We did also talk about the fact that there might be a stagger as far as time, and perhaps our pools would have closed at 7 and our aquatic facilities stayed open until 7:30. Again, the staff assessed that 7:30 time, keeping that consistent across the 5 facilities was good for messaging and was something logistically that the staff and team could handle. And we thought that there was more positive in that than negative. So that's why we're presenting that to you as a full hour at each facility for that 2021 timeframe. A couple of the other things below that are listed: no reduction to swim lessons. As I mentioned earlier, we actually have the ability to even expand on some things we've done, looking at creative options for using multiple spaces of each facility. 180 additional open swim hours, that's including the Saturdays all season, and then the activation of the additional hour after evening swim lessons conclude, starting July 12th. A slight decrease, again, this was highlighted in the last presentation to you, for private rentals, and then a total fiscal impact of just over $45,000. And of the scenarios we ran, going back to our last meeting and talking about the different things that the staff would explore between then and now, this was actually the lowest number. So that was another win as far as what we're bringing to you tonight in terms of our proposal. That really brings me to the conclusion of what I was planning to share with you. I'd be happy to try and answer any other questions at this time.
So I have a question. I want to make sure I'm straight on this. So we're talking about these changes.
I can't hear you very well, Jim.
Wow, that's a first.
I know.
Can you say that again, George? The changes that we're talking about for hours would be in the calendar year 2021.
Correct.
The budget year runs from July 1 to June 30. is there some reason why we couldn't implement the July 12 to season end changes, since that's a budget year we haven't dealt with yet? Not the May 29 to July 11. Is there some logic behind there that
The city
I need
manager
to
asked me not
understand
do it.
better?
Yeah, the city manager's asked us to consider it for not till 2021.
That's a reasonable
Yes.
expectation.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's trying to manage, if you watch the headlines, there was the 40-cent tax reduction that the council's asked him to do, so his budget's now kind of back to a different level of review. So he said any ads, he'd like to be able to look at holistically for 2021.
But realistically, they aren't doing that budget till March. Is that true? I mean, they aren't certifying that budget till March.
Who knows, right now, so.
But I mean, that's when they're required to certify it's
Required to
March.
have it in by the middle of March to the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Matt, the major adjustment as I look at this is probably the extended hour and a half time frame on Saturday throughout the whole season.
That's correct.
Okay.
Again, going back to our survey, and again, we know it wasn't a large sample size, but that was just a piece of the equation as far as us talking to patrons, assessing some things with our team internally. There was about 50% of the interest was having hours added before we opened, and 50% of the interest was expanding hours after we closed. So we think this, again, pilot or trial in 2021 allows us to have some earlier hours on Saturday, which we think could resonate well with people, and then some extended hours in the evening. And those are things that we'll very specifically assess when that comes around, if this is a proposal that you accept. And we would probably actually chart things on the hour to really even better document than we have in the past how many people are attending during the specific times we're open.
Well, the 6 o'clock closing on Saturday rather than 6:30 might enhance a few more rentals that you might lose during the week. So,
Potentially,
so
absolutely.
I think that's probably a good adjustment. Lloyd, now you have comments on this?
I like the fact they're working in the extended hours for all the facilities, and it's always hard to say whether 30 minutes on one end or the other end. I think at some point you just gotta make a decision and then kind of track it and see what the impact is. So I'm just pleased to see that there's an opportunity to try and expand the hours. And
We'll definitely track those, just because we've tracked attendance, but not by different hours of the day. It's one thing they're already prepared to do, depending on what this board asks us to do and what the council approves in our budget. And then when we can come back, like I always said, these things are always a trial, and then we come back and we show you the results, because we're not set in stone for a decade. We can make another adjustment next year. If you hear from folks, or we can survey folks, we can come back and say, hey, the mornings were a successful ad, but the afternoons was not. So let's make another change. Just remember that we have the ability to change this, subject to council's approving budgets. If it's the same hours, it's easier to change. If we're going to add more hours each year, that's a different level of review.
another way to put it, if there's not official impact, you probably have some flexibility to come back and tweak
This
these
board right here
hours.
sets the pool hours and season.
And really, these aren't part of the budget till a year from now.
Yep.
Or more.
Yep.
15 months from now. So we could review this again next fall if we find out something next summer about early or later
Correct.
hours if we really wanted to.
Something else happened in the city finances that allowed us to do something different quicker.
Right.
Absolutely.
Other comments?
Just so I'm understanding, is the fiscal impact of the 45,000, is that primarily the operational, the staffing costs?
It's a little bit of the staffing cost, loss of revenue from swim lessons, because you're eating into some of the swim lesson hours. So we try to do a delicate balancing. We need to probably send you last month's presentation, because you didn't get to see that. When we had 5 options and we narrowed it down to 3, and we went through what that physical impact is, from staffing costs to utility costs to loss of revenue to add of revenue. And it's based on a lot of assumptions and reviewed by our city finance department to make sure they have a clean look at it too. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Yep.
Other comments? Matt, I think your staff did a great job putting this together, and it's something that obviously concerned board members, I think, can work with, and as you monitor this moving forward, I think that will definitely help. I'm glad to see that it only impacts private rentals supposedly about $2,700, which is minimal.
Correct. Yes. Thank you, and certainly want to thank the Park and Recreation Board for their discussion last month. That helped to give us a lot of guidance on what we presented you today.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. So Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis,
Approve?
Vogel,
Yes.
Sayers,
Yes.
Bremner,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodard,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Bill Main,
Yes.
Hugh,
Yes.
Banter,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Board action is passed, so we can move right on to speed limits.
Thank you. So this was also in front of you last time. As you remember, we spent quite a bit of our calendar year working on rules and ordinances, and we're almost to the end of that, and we appreciate all your work. This one looks at speed limits in park and cemetery roads. And just a reminder, there are several parks in the city system that we don't manage. Waterworks Park, Easter Lake Park, Fort Des Moines Park, those are not our parks. So with all of our other parks and cemeteries that have roads that have speed limits like McCrae, Grays Lake, Glendale Cemetery, that's the list we're talking about. This unifies our approach to managing these and calling them all the same speed. Since the last meeting, one thing has happened. We did meet with the Traffic and Safety Committee. Is that the real name again? I messed that up. Transportation and Safety Committee. They just changed their name recently. It's a board like yourself. They meet for the city and help look at things like this for the city, for where we should put stop signs and speed limits and all those things. They came back and Richard presented them. They support this. I think it's a good policy. So now it's in front of you. If approved, it does go to the council for, is it a hearing, Richard, or 2 hearings? I think it's 2 hearings, but it'll go to the council for another public process, and it won't happen in one meeting. If approved by you and the council, we'll spend the off-season ordering signs and installing signs in the spring.
One question now, because I don't know, is if a person receives a speeding violation, does that go on their license record? Beg your pardon?
Yes, so if you were speeding in
really?
Southwest 9th versus McRae Park, the ticket's the same on the record.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Dan,
Nate, go ahead.
I'm sorry, George. What do you do about people that continually park in the park? Well, I live across the street from McHenry Park, and the far shelter house is a long way from the road. Okay. A number of people will
Right.
drive back, unload, and just park. What do you do?
If we are able to, if we have staff, it depends what time of the season, when we have seasonal staff that work nights for us, they'll ask them to move. If they don't move, we'll just call our friends in the police department, and they'll move them on out. If a neighbor sees it, we ask you to call the non-emergency line too. There's a handful of parks, which Sam's talking about. McHenry has a beautiful shelter way in the back with the overlook of Riverview Park and the downtown skyline. It's not affordable, or it's not even good park design to put a road all the way back to that. It would take away a lot of green space the kids use. It would divide soccer fields in half. It would divide open recreations in half. So people will drive back to those sites. We have an old park system, so it's hard to modify that. So it's something we try to live with, but it starts like this. You rent a park from us, you come in or online, you sign a waiver that says you understand you may not drive on the grass. So that's the first level of educating the public. The second level is our staff out on the weekends and nights and asking them to self-comply with the rule. The third level is calling the police. If they do damage, we usually can trace it back to the renter.
Okay, so that's the only thing we can do is call the non-emergency.
Non-emergency number. Yep. We also have an after-hours number too. We can send that to all of you. We have an on-call number. Each one of our staff members takes a weekend, and every 6 months they get a weekend, or 3 or 4 months actually they get a weekend. And their job is to be that on-call number, whoever calls us, and then we try to help manage that, whatever the issue is from there. It's frustrating. It does cause some issues, but we've seen it actually curtailing down.
Have you?
Yep.
Well,
You probably won't see it.
I'm not sure I have.
You won't see it there because that's one of the tougher spots.
I wonder if I could ask about using a dumpster in a public park. We've noticed on Southwest 30th near the
Personal,
south.
yeah.
Yes. What's the policy there?
It's illegal, and if we do catch folks, we can press charges. And so I've always had the philosophy of this. We've had lots of debates internally on this. This is a good question. If we don't have dumpsters in our park system, guess what happens?
It's gonna be in
They
the
just
park.
put it in the park anyway. So then I have to not only pay for the removal, I have to send Ron and his team out there and injure them sometimes because they dump heavy things. So we risk an injury, and then we still pick up their trash. So I hate to say this publicly, but those dumpsters serve a couple purposes in the town. They're like mini scrub events for some people, I guess, unfortunately. And it's part of our budget. It's built into our budget. It's unfortunate, and it's going to happen. We don't have a way to screen those or lock them.
Sure.
It's a good question. We try to think about those things. And
Do most parks have dumpsters?
no, I would say probably of the 75 parks, I'm gonna look at Ron, but maybe 15 or so. 15 parks have dumpsters.
Okay.
We try to put them in strategic spots that aren't always in the open. That way staff, when they collect the blue barrels, as they get enough in the back of their trucks, they can make it to one of the parks that has a dumpster. That way they don't have to bring it all the way back to here. It's not very efficient for the routing that way. So that's what we do.
Well, just, I also want to ask, and I realize that's a little off track, but are you still having the problems with tires being dumped?
It's been a while.
Not like it was at Ewing Park there a year or so ago, but we still find it every once in a while, but it hasn't been as bad as it was.
I will say this for people watching, just to know that we've experimented and we've had some success with what the hunters use called trail cameras. And we put those in some certain spots throughout our park system, and we've caught quite a few people that way. So the city's always watching. I'll tell everybody out there. So.
Any other, oh, you had a question, Barb?
Oh,
Can we move that over here?
sure. So, related to the citations, whether it's for parking or for speeding, those would only be issued by police.
Correct. We don't have a parks patrol. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good question.
Joe, I guess that kind of eliminates you in citizens arrest then.
Never.
We have no trail red light cameras or anything like that.
Okay. Any other comments on the speed limit addition? Well, Andrea?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Go ahead, Lloyd.
We have a motion approved and seconded, or a motion given and seconded. Let's, Rebecca, would you please call the roll? Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Sayers?
Yes.
Bremner?
Yes.
Potter?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Woodard?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Domain?
Yes.
Pugh?
Yes.
Banter?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Jennifer, we appreciate you coming back since you were almost a block from your house to retake the pictures.
Let's take a quick break because we're going to lose one member here. So let's take the
Okay.
picture. The dress rehearsal was nice. Now we'll do the real one.
Another one?
Yeah, we have Lloyd and Bill here. I want to make sure they get the picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna take
You're like,
know
oh,
how
next
to,
to
now we know how
Sam.
to do
I
it.
don't have my uniform laced.
It's easy.
on her.
So you sit next to Sam and Lloyd. Get over
We know Bill, tell Bill we know he dressed for the picture. Come on, kid, we're going again.
To look nice.
We know you dressed for the picture.
Obeying orders.
That's right. Come on, let's go, brother.
Rebecca said to dress decent, so.
Let's get Barb. Let's get you over here. Just outside those two kind of in the middle. There you go. Well, there's some here. There you go. Let's get Cindy in the front too.
Can you step this way, and you step back there? Or that's good too? What else? I want to make sure we can see everybody's face. That's the point, right?
This is helping Sweeps Week for the Channel 7.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Intermission's over.
Oh, yeah.
The real test is when Jen starts editing the end report, she'll remember which picture to use.
Bill, you look great. Okay, we are back to the Golf Advisory Committee appointments.
I studied this real hard, if I were you guys. Cheat the characters on this one. This is an easy one. This is two members you know real well are going to serve as citizen members. And to remember to help us document terms when they start and stop. This is the document we use for you if they're not a park board member serving on one of those committees or an actual citizen member. You can read the bios, but I think, you know, both these individuals really will, so we're looking for, I guess the golf committee's already blessed this, so they'd like to see it move forward.
Sam, you're on now, aren't you?
Steve, I have a question on the adjective iconic.
I was mad, I didn't say that.
Okay, I think we know him. Any questions on that?
I'll move.
Second.
Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis.
Approve?
Vogel.
Yes.
Sayers.
Yes.
Bremner.
Yes.
Potter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Woodard.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
Domain.
Abstain.
Hugh.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. It passes. We're very fortunate to have two great
Yes.
citizen people on that committee. That's a very busy committee, and they impact a lot of different citizens in Des Moines. Okay, moving to E, I would recommend that we have a cancellation like we do every year of the December meeting, and that also includes the advisory committee meeting or the executive committee meeting. And then our next meeting officially then would be the executive committee meeting, third Wednesday in January, right? Or, beg your pardon? Our second Wednesday in January, and then our park board would be the fourth Tuesday in January. So we're going to be off quite a while. So if you have pressing issue, you can call us on the phone, and we will, get to it. So at this point in time, I open that up for conversation. Is there anyone that really wants to meet in December?
Certainly
we
not
need a
December
motion.
24th.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Rebecca, please call the roll.
Davis.
Absolutely.
Vogel.
Yes.
Sayers.
Yes.
Bremner.
Yes.
Potter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Woodard.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
Domain.
Yes.
Hugh.
Yes.
Cantor.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We will not have a December meeting or an executive meeting in December, so we'll meet again in January. Joel, I know you had some pressing stuff to go to. We're done with board action.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you very
If
much.
anybody else has to leave early, and you're new with this, our staff grows those poinsettias in the greenhouse. This is our gift to you for all the volunteer work. You come to our dedications, you come to the park board meetings, you occasionally come to a council meeting, whatever we ask you, we want to say thank you. So make sure you take those home and get them, don't let them leave them in your car. If you know anything about poinsettias, they'll go bad real quickly in your car on a night like tonight. So get them inside, but take one with you if you have to leave early for some reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ben, let's move to receive and file.
I was going to ask Chair Davis, would you like me to give my cemetery report before I
Yes,
leave?
you know what? That's a good idea, because Joel has another issue to get to. So why don't you go ahead and give your cemetery report at this time. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right, we met Wednesday, November 6th, and we talked about the Wreaths Across America program, which is going very strong. The cutoff date will be December 2nd, coming up next week, I do believe, and we continued our rules and regulation discussion, and we are looking at a January to February report to come to this board to approve and then go to City Council.
What is Reach Across America?
Wreaths Across America is a
Wreaths.
Wreaths.
Oh, Wreaths.
Wreaths
Oh,
Across
with a W.
America.
Okay.
Yes, a program to basically honor fallen veterans that are buried in cemeteries with wreaths around the holidays. So people can order wreaths, and we're collecting them, and we'll go out and place them in the cemeteries.
Do all of our cemeteries have a military section?
They have military individuals, only some have sections like
Okay.
Woodlawn and Glendale and Laurel Hill. The other ones we just have individuals. Laurel Hill, yep.
Okay.
And this is quite the honor to be selected for this national program, to have your city selected. So we're trying to get that last push to get enough wreaths donated. Last I looked, we were a couple hundred short, but they were still coming in.
They're still coming in, yes.
Questions for Joel? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sorry, God.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
Okay, now we will go to the receive and file.
All right, this is your budget process, so I always like kind of using the same format. That way you understand, where we've started at and where things have changed. Richard Brown, our assistant director, is going to run you through just how our budgets have always worked. For some of you, this is old hat. For some of you, this is new hat. So you'll feel free to stop him at any point, raise your hand, and he can stop and pause and answer your question. We don't pretend that city budget is 101. It's easy. So make sure you stop and ask us a question if you have one.
Chair Davis, members of the Parks and Recreation Board, Richard Brown, Assistant Director. Like Ben said, tonight what we want to do is just kind of walk you through our operating budget, how it fits into the larger picture of the tax dollars that are collected by the City of Des Moines and other entities in the City of Des Moines, and how that breaks down into how we spend that money each year to offer the Parks and Recreation services that we offer to the residents of Des Moines. First, we want to step way, way back and look at the 30,000-foot view. So every tax dollar that is collected from property taxes in the City of Des Moines on a house in the City of Des Moines, it goes to a lot of different entities. So the City of Des Moines, which you can see on the second from the left there, only collects about 35% of every tax dollar that are taxed on your home or your business or anything like that. So City of Des Moines is a very small percentage of the overall tax dollar. Next, that breaks down into the overall city budget. In total, the city's budget in the fiscal year 2020 is about $738 million. That's a lot of money that comes from a lot of different sources. The city issues debt for construction of new roads, sewers, some of our park improvements. There's enterprise funds that come from your trash that gets collected that you pay monthly on the water bill. And then there's the general fund. So there's a lot of different ways that the city gets its money to operate the city on a yearly basis.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Will we receive a copy of their presentation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. We usually send them out right after
Okay,
the next
thank
day.
you. Thank you.
Richard, can I get you to go back to one slide?
Yeah.
So what you're saying here is, as we split that dollar up, when we talk about millage rate decrease of 40 cents and things like that, the only thing that is impacted on that is the 35 cents from the City of Des Moines.
Correct.
They have no other control over DART, schools, DMAC, Polk County, or Broadlands.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make that clear for everyone because I know there's a lot of confusion, especially with the upcoming election stuff.
And depending on where you're at, because some areas within the City of Des Moines, they have different school districts. There's areas that are within the Carlisle School District. There's areas within the Johnston School District. And there's areas of the city there within the Southeast Polk. So that's going to vary a little bit depending on what part of the city you are in, but depending on who your school district is as well. Also, before we jump into our specific budget, we just want to differentiate between operating and capital budgets. We're only looking at the operating budget today. That's the day-to-day expenses it takes to run the Parks and Recreation Department. That is the staff that empties the trash cans, cleans the restroom, the grass that gets mowed, the programs that are put on, all those facilities and events that get put on out there. It's employee salaries and maintenance of the park system. What we won't be talking about today is the capital budget. That's the money that is for major construction projects. Generally, if you look at a definition of what's operating versus capital, if we expect it to last 20 years, then it's most likely a capital improvement that the city bonds for and pays back over a period of time. This is most of the money and the projects that Jenny and her team manage on a day-to-day basis to make sure the park system looks good, has new playground equipment, improved trails, shelter houses, basketball courts, you name it, just about everything else. When we break down where we put our budget into the overall terms of the city budget, we are in that small pot, if you go back a few slides, of what is considered the operating budget, the stuff that comes from your tax dollars. Then you break that down even more, and you can see here a lot of different city departments are within the operating budget of about $172 million, with the police and fire departments being the largest piece of that. And then you can see in the kind of the bottom left, Parks and Recreation is about 7% of the overall operating budget for the City of Des Moines. Departments like Public Works, they're funded out of enterprise funds because you pay a monthly trash bill to have them come pick up your trash, and so they're funded out of that area. Over the past few years, we've made a lot of changes to our budget that has impacted our ability to either have staff to do things or having to get contractors to do things, or we've had to look at different fees and increases and decreases to ensure that we're still able to provide the services to the residents of Des Moines. A lot of things we've done include increasing our fees. Probably the biggest area you would notice that is the cemeteries. Ganesh and his team have worked really, really hard to try to match the fees that we charge people to be buried or to have a service at our cemeteries to ensure it's in line with what the market will bear and what people pay for that. We've also had to shift priorities. There are things that were important in the past that aren't as important now. One of the things you've probably seen is the shift to more natural resource management, looking at rain gardens, prairie areas, woodland restoration. That's been a shift that, if you looked at our budget 10 years ago, would not have been reflected in a way that it is now today. Efficiencies in operations, trying to find, are there ways to locate our equipment in one spot here? Is there ways to ensure that we're not sending staff all over town? Are we finding ways to do things in a little bit more efficient manner? We've had to reduce operating budgets. One of the biggest things that had to be done was we contracted out all the mowing across the park system. That was something that was very difficult to do, and continues to have difficulties at time working with a different contractor every year sometimes, or every couple of years. We've reduced staff. We used to have 147 full-time employees. All that work now is done by 59 full-time employees plus a series of contractors that we have staff making sure they get their work done. And so there's a lot of different ways that we've had to change our budget over the years to still continue to provide the services to the residents.
Richard, do you find that the mowers, the contractor people that you contracted to mow, do you find them doing an adequate job?
So it really just depends on what's going on. Over the years, we've had a lot of different contractors. Some have been better than others. Some, we truly believe, probably weren't prepared for what they got themselves into. They bid on all of our contracts. So we have contracts by our cemeteries and broken up into different zones in the city because we really feel like all the parkland that needs to be mowed can't be done by one person. We've had instances where contractors thought they could do it and they couldn't. We've had contractors that have been pretty good overall, but the one thing we know that it just takes a lot of vigilance on our part. We have one full-time person for 7 months out of the year, and his sole job is just to ensure that the contractors are making sure they get all the mowing cycles done. And he does a great job with it, and we'd be lost without him, but it is a big job to continue to do that. So it takes a lot of diligence on our part and make sure that we're keeping an eye on them. And it happens. Mowing contractors change all the time. Some are better than others, and we're just going through a mowing cycle contract update now where new contractors bid on it, and we'll figure out what we can work with. This slide here just shows kind of how things have changed over the years in terms of our operating budget. So the blue is what is subsidized by the taxpayers to operate the Parks and Recreation Department, and the green is what we bring in revenue to operate Parks and Recreation Department and provide the services that we do. What you'll see is most of that green is really provided by cemetery revenues. That's the sale of lots, that's funeral services, anything related to the cemetery. A big chunk of that is that. Total, our budgets have averaged for a long time about $15 million, but you'll see in fiscal year 2017 that went down quite a bit. That's not because of a budget cut. What happened there is that the facilities team, so the carpenters, electricians, plumbers, all that team, they were actually moved from Parks and Recreation into a new facilities division that is now under the city manager's office. So that money didn't disappear and our budgets go down. They just shifted over to the city manager's office. They still provide many of the same services that they did before, just on a contract basis through the city manager's office and the new facilities manager, Jim Hoff. Talked a little bit about revenue increases. That's been one of the key things we've tried to do is find ways to increase revenues, but not impact people's ability to participate in programs, attend our facilities, and really participate in Parks and Recreation services. So the Parks and Recreation Board here has been very key in assisting us and really balancing out ways to increase revenue, but at the same time ensuring that access for people to be part of programs and services and facilities. Demographics really makes increasing revenue a big challenge, and we just saw that the City Council adopted the new scholarship program that reduces anyone eligible free and reduced meals to have $5 swim lessons and $5 youth athletic offerings. So a lot of importance on that to making sure that people can still participate in that. We have had some areas in success where we've been able to raise fees without impacting people's ability to participate. One of those is the soccer parking fees. We now charge every team that comes to a tournament at County Soccer Park charging a parking fee that they pay ahead of time, that they would be coming here no matter what as part of that tournament. So it's allowed us to collect some extra revenue. Also, as part of the state soccer tournaments that are out there, the sport associations for both the boys and the girls allow us to charge parking. So we're able to recoup some of the cost out there to provide those amazing facilities. And then again, cemeteries. We've been able to adjust the fees for cemeteries, both up and a little bit down in a few cases, to make sure that they match the market rates and what people can pay. Again, just a quick summary of some of the major actions we've taken over the last 10 plus years. The great thing that we are really proud of is, despite all the changes to contracting out, the zoo and the botanical centers now being operated by private nonprofits, we were still able to maintain a majority of the services that were provided by the department, and actually a lot of cases increase them. If you think about 10 years ago, we probably had about 15 miles less trail than we do now, and we're still able to maintain all those in a way that is appropriate for what people expect from facilities, a high quality, that look nice, have trash removed all the time. One of the big things we've talked about was outsourcing mowing and custodial services. But we found as part of that, mowing we were able to make work, but custodial services didn't make a lot of sense. And that's something that was actually brought back in-house and is done by our seasonal staff. The zoo and the botanical center were created nonprofits that now operate outside the city's authority, but we still have a say by providing some operating costs, capital costs, and Ben sits as a member of their nonprofit boards to ensure that residents are still represented in that. We look at our department organization, we reorganize, we look at the way that we offer those services. One of the major ones in 2012 was reducing the pool and aquatic center hours, which we're now talking about trying to find a way to reverse that and maybe add hours back. Golf course operations were outsourced to a private contractor, which has been successful, and now we're offering more services because if you buy a badge, you can now probably have access to 5 different courses when the city only owns 3 courses. And then eliminated full-time positions. There's been a lot of change over time that full-time positions were eliminated and replaced by contractors, so some difficult times over the years. Now looking forward into what is our 2020 budget, total our budget is about $13.4 million. We bring in just shy of $3.9 million in revenue, and the rest of that is a subsidy. And the way we really try to illustrate that to the public and how we provide those services, we broke it down into 8 service lines. They are aquatics, city landscape support, cemeteries, civic attractions, community recreation centers, parks, recreation, and trails. And what I'll do here in a minute is just go a little bit more in depth on each one of them. What's the cost, subsidy, and overall revenue for each one of these areas, and what does it include? But before I do that, what we did is we actually broke this down, those 8 service areas, into our operating budget, and from a pie chart, how does it look and where do we spend most of the money? So you can see a big majority, almost half, is in providing the maintenance for the park system and the recreation programming that we offer at our special events, our community recreation centers, all those aquatic centers that we offer. A lot of those are broken down there. Cemeteries would be probably the 3rd largest with the staff it just takes to pull off the maintenance of 7 cemeteries and over 650 burials per year. Here in just a quick snapshot is all 8 of those service areas, what their expenses, revenue, and subsidy are. And depending on what it is, some have a very big subsidy, some are better at recovering income and revenue. The first service line is our aquatics. So this covers anything related to our aquatics. It's not just our 2 pools and our 3 aquatic centers, but it's our splash pools similar to Ashby, Union, Crevero, and MLK. We now have 10 spray grounds. We have a reducing number of wading pools, 8, and that will continue to reduce as we put in new spray grounds over the years. And we offer swimming lessons. Last year we did about 2,500 swimming lessons for people across the community, a number that continues to grow year after year, and we're very excited that we'll be able to teach more and more people how to swim. A lot of expenses here, about $1.5 million to operate all those facilities, and we only bring in about 1/3 of that in revenue, so about $488,000. So you can see the city subsidizes aquatic facilities by about $1 million a year. The next one is city landscape support. So what this one is the management of non-park land. This is worrying about things like litter, snow removal, plantings not on parkland. So that could be things like right-of-way, garden areas, things that are outside the parks that we're still responsible for as a Parks and Recreation Department. It also includes our greenhouse and all the annual flowers that we provide, the neighborhood flower program where we provide well over 100,000 annual plants to neighborhood associations if they plant them in the public right-of-way. This is a lot of the flower pots you see downtown, not all of them. We do have a contract for some of that, but our staff does quite a few of them. And then Fluor Drive. So that's kind of a unique situation there, but we do not maintain the medians in Fluor Drive. Des Moines Waterworks does that, but we provide the flowers for them. So a lot of the annual flowers you see along Fluor Drive are provided by our greenhouse. Next is cemeteries. We have 7 cemeteries, with the most active being Glendale on the west side and Laurel Hill on the east side. But we have 4 other cemeteries that at different times may have a burial or 2. But overall, they're large historic cemeteries that need to be maintained by the city to ensure that they look good and respect the history and the memories of the people that are buried there. We manage lot and niche sales and average about 600 to 650 plus burials per year out there at the cemeteries.
I am shocked that our subsidy is only $500,000 a year in these cemeteries, because I thought I'd read this report just a couple years ago or 3 years ago where it was a lot more than that.
I'd say that you've all done good work working with staff on setting fees and making that a priority every year, and then working with our council members too. Is for a long time we kind of let that just run its own course, and then we fell behind. So those 2% and 3% increases we do every year is keeping that gap in the right area where we don't outprice the market or our citizens of Des Moines. We also don't get a big gap there that causes future issues for the city's financial operations. So it's been good work by the board and the Citizen Cemetery Advisory Committee.
The next one is civic attractions. So this is the management of those facilities that used to be under the control of Parks and Recreation. It's the golf courses, it's Principal Park, it's the Botanical Gardens, it's the zoo. And what we do here is we provide in some ways for the zoo and the Botanical Gardens an operating subsidy to help those continue to stay open and available to the residents of Des Moines and the larger region. But at the same time, the city doesn't have to bear the entire operating cost and capital improvement to improve those facilities. So it's a way that we can ensure that those facilities survive without having to bear the entire cost of that.
I like pausing there just for a second. If you think about the magnitude of those institutions in Des Moines, it only costs, remember, this is operating, this is not capital or long-term grants that we do for additional amenities to be added to have more attractions come to those facilities, but just the day-to-day operation support that the city gives to ensure those stay in Des Moines, that's pretty spectacular, that only $400,000 it takes to keep those facilities in Des Moines.
The next one is the community recreation centers. We have the 2 community recreation centers, 4 Mile, which is on Eastern Boulevard on the east side, and then we have Pioneer Columbus Community Recreation Center, which is just south of downtown on Southeast 5th. These are great facilities that see well over 100,000 people per year go through their doors, from anything from the Polk County Senior Meal Site. Seniors are able to show up there every day, Monday through Friday, to have a meal, to have activities and crafts, and really just be a social opportunity. We do preschool, after school, drop-in, Holly Recreation. Depending on what's going on, we have spring break programs. Matt and Jen and everyone on our team has put together things such as activities with the cops, so they come out and they can play dodgeball or basketball. The Des Moines Boxing Club is now in Pioneer Columbus. We do indoor and outdoor fitness programs. We have rental space for birthday parties, baby showers, anniversaries, you name it. These are a hub of activities that are going basically from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, it's pretty much nonstop with youth athletic activities and rentals. So if you go out there now on a Saturday and Sunday, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of kids, grades from 3 to 8, running around, playing basketball, just enjoying themselves. And they're really just great hubs of activity in these neighborhoods. This one is parks. This is the big chunk of what you think of it takes to maintain a park system. This is managing and maintaining our mowing. This is the 3,000 plus acres of non-mowed area. This is your forest. This is your wetlands. This is your savannas and prairie areas. It's also looking at green infrastructure practices such as rain gardens and other amenities that really improve the overall ecological quality of our park system. It's plantings, it's the annual plantings and the irrigation that it takes to make the medians and boulevards look good. It's the constant picking up of litter removal. It's the emptying of dumpsters and the junk that people throw on the side of that. It's the custodial work in our bathrooms. It's our community gardens and really our major signature park, maintaining Grays Lake. A lot of things go into here, and you think about that, you get all that for about $3.9 million, which is pretty incredible with all these parks across the community that you can do it for that amount of money. Recreation, this is offering our recreation programs and facilities citywide. It's adult sports at our softball complex. It's youth sports everywhere. It's special events like our Jingle Bell parties. It's environmental education. One of the things, if you guys have met Joel, and he's probably been up here a few times, we don't see Joel most of the year because Joel is either out playing with the bald eagles, looking at birds, building bluebird boxes. He's out there pretty much constantly teaching people how to interact with nature and teaching them what to do. He gets them on paddle boards at Grays Lake. He does canoeing classes pretty much nonstop. And it's just such a great asset to what we do and the recreation programs we offer. It's also facility rentals and permitted uses. We have all the enclosed shelters across the community that are rented basically year-round. We have disc golf courses. One of the really popular things the past few years is cyclocross, which is an activity that takes place in the fall, and we offer that in a lot of different spots. And then field practices. You can't just show up for a game, so you got to have a place of practice. And so we do a lot of rentals on our fields and some of the open spaces across the system. This one is trails. So total between all our paved trails and the nature trails in the city, there's about 91 miles of trails. That's a lot when you think about it, but also at the same time you think about you can get pretty much anywhere in the city of Des Moines on a trail at this point. Once the Carl Boss Trail finishes up here early next year, and you'll be able to go just about anywhere in the community on a trail without having to cross a street or cross very few streets. We do get annual user counts, and we see millions of uses across our trail system. It's the managing and the maintaining and the mowing again along there. It's picking up litter and debris. It's worrying about plantings at trailheads and removing snow from the trails every winter. One of the unique things we do that not every community does is remove the snow from all our paved trails almost immediately after it's done snowing. And that's not a level of service that you're going to find in every community. You get out of the edge of the city limits, and Polk County Conservation does not remove the snow from their trails. The city of Clive doesn't remove snow from all of the Clive Greenbelt trails. So it's a very high level of service that really came from the park board and it's your trails advisory committee about 15 years ago, where they said we prefer to see the ability of people to use these trails year round. And since then, that's been that way, and it's been important to the system. So give you a quick overview of what our budget is, but one of the things we do is also prepare recommendations for what we'd like to see based on everything we hear from you as a Parks and Recreation Board, as well as what's been adopted in Live DSM. So we as a team got together and we went through all our existing programs and services provided by the department. We reviewed them, and we wanted to see how well they align with the new Live DSM plan. We then had staff look at potential proposals for inclusion in the upcoming budget, and then we ranked and scored them, and we selected several of them to be submitted to the city manager for consideration and ultimately the city council for consideration as the upcoming budget. Most of you are probably familiar with this since we talked quite a bit about it in the last year, but just want to quickly go over this because this was part of what we did. We went through all 5 of these Live DSM goals: equity, attraction, heart, nature, and innovation. And we want to see all those existing programs and services, how well do they align in helping us accomplish this plan over the next 20 years. Most things align pretty well, but there are some things that maybe don't align as well. And so we want to make sure that we're reviewing those programs and services and seeing if we maybe need to adjust them, maybe need to look at them in a different way, or maybe just need to scale back. Like I talked about earlier, the whole ability to maintain our natural areas is not something we looked at 10 to 15 years ago. It's very important now, and you can see it's represented in the nature goal here. Also, when looking at equity from a standpoint of providing equitable services and facilities to the residents of Des Moines, we need to find a way where we could really put this on a level of treatment to understand how maybe we could score this and ensure that those services are provided that way. And we found a report done through the Des Moines Area MPO where it talks about environmental justice. And I'll just let you read this here for a second. I won't read it to you, but it's important how we looked at and scored things related to equity. So what the MPO did is they went across the entire area, so that's the entire metro area plus some of the rural areas surrounding the Des Moines area, and they put together studies of 7 degrees of disadvantage to identify environmental justice areas or large areas of traditionally underserved individuals. You can see the 7 degrees here. It's minority populations, it's people that don't have cars, it's households in poverty, it's single households with children in it, persons with seniors, limited English ability, and persons with disability. And then they said environmental justice areas are disadvantaged in at least 4 of the 7 population groups. So if an area of the city of Des Moines had 4 of these 7 disadvantaged groups or more, then they were considered an environmental justice area. So we really thought that was an opportunity for us to really start to maybe score and see how well some of the proposals ranked in the terms of equity if they were in some of these environmental justice areas. After we went through all that and evaluated all these things, staff turned in 18 potential projects that could be considered for turning into the city manager and ultimately city council for consideration. Every one of them was scored against our LIVE DSM goals and given an environmental justice area score. At the end, 7 of them were selected for submission for consideration to the city manager and their budget review committee. You know, one thing I want to say here, this is the scoring criteria that we use, and you'll notice it's not exact. You wouldn't be able to put it on this. Every one of you would probably give a different score to each one of these proposals. But what it did is it helped us to give us at least a parameter or an idea on how all these might rank. And it was a starting spot for discussions when we looked at these things. So we ranked them from 0 all the way up to 10 points on each of the 5 goals. And really it was a feeling, you know, does this goal really help to improve the equitable delivery of services and facilities, or does it not? Or does it fit somewhere in between there? So this was just a starting spot. You'll be able to read all this when we send out the presentation because there's a little bit of detail in this. But it was a starting spot for us to say, all right, of all the ideas we put together, these 18 ideas, how well do they help to accomplish these 5 goals? At the end of it, we came up with 7 proposed projects that ranked high enough, and after discussions about how they might impact what we do on a daily basis, the impact to the residents of Des Moines, and how well they scored, the top 7 proposals were these. And these are the 7 proposals that we submitted to the Budget Review Committee and the City Manager for consideration in the upcoming budget. I won't go into detail on these, but I'll just give you a quick overview. Number 1, neighborhood park programming. This was a recommendation to expand the programming we are doing at Evelyn K. Davis Park, funded on the city's dollar, and expanded by up to 5 new parks. We really appreciate all the work and just think the programming that's done in Evelyn K. Davis Park is amazing and does a lot of things to improve that park. So we think it'd be beneficial to expand that. So we did a proposal that would be up to 5 parks, but we said we could even just start in 1 park. Next is a trails maintenance program. What this is taking the investment in the city's trail system. All those miles of paved trail need maintenance at some point so that you don't have to rebuild them and re-asphalt them. So for about $60,000 a year, you can touch every bit of our asphalt trail system with whatever needed maintenance you'll need to do over the next few years. It could be crack sealing, it could be just an overlay of oil to help protect the asphalt surface. But we found that $60,000 after working with the Public Works Department will help protect a longer term investment in those asphalt trails, because trails only see people walking, running, bicycles. They don't see the constant wear and tear of 4,000-pound vehicles going over them every single day at 30, 40 miles an hour. So if you protect them, then that investment's going to last a long time. We're looking at maybe 30 or 40 years that some of these trails could survive without having to re-asphalt. And that's a major investment to re-asphalt a trail. So we think this is a no-brainer, and it ranked very, very high. Number 3 was natural resource staffing. With all those acres of land that we're trying to do ecological management on, we propose adding a 7-month staff from April to October every year. Same with trail staffing. We propose to add 1 7-monther from April to October of every year. That would be person to help out the existing trail staff. We propose to increase our seasonal wage for all our pool staff, 120-day workers. This was something we did about 2 years ago, and we really feel like it made a big difference, and we feel like another increase here in the year or 2 would also help to keep us competitive with some of the surrounding businesses and aquatic facilities. Number 6 was playground staffing. So this would be adding a 7-monther. April to October to help out with the inspections and repairs of our playgrounds. We're making a big dent thanks to a lot of volunteer projects of replacing playgrounds, but there's still a lot out there that date from the 93 to 94 era and need a lot of repairs and replacements. And then finally, the one that we talked about earlier here, the aquatic season hour increase. So those were the 7 proposals that we submitted forward to the city manager for consideration. At this time, we haven't heard back or know if any of them will be selected to move forward to the city council. But like we talked about, he will make a recommendation to the city council for an overall budget on everything, not just Parks and Recreation, but every department across the city, what he thinks can be in there based on the policy guidance the council's given to them. Ultimately, the city council will review and adopt a budget. What will be in it, we don't know at this point. And then the fiscal 2021 budget would start July 1 of 2020. I'll just leave it with this here. This is a great graphic that Jen and her team put together every couple of years. The average property tax homeowner in the city of Des Moines pays about $129 every year in Parks and Recreation services. So one of the things we'd like to do is just say, hey, you know, for the average homeowner in the city of Des Moines, this is what you get for your $129. And there's 2 sheets here. But it's just a great graphic to illustrate how little of what you pay goes to Parks and Recreation and how much you get for that. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
It's a lot to give you, but
Very
a lot to
thorough.
see it. And so we'll open it up for questions you have, and you have process questions or you have detailed questions. I would tell you that two of the staffing level requests we have, playgrounds and trails, today have 1 full-time employee each for the 65 playgrounds, 1 for that. It's a full-time job, as you can imagine, because they're getting used a lot and they're aging out, some of them. The other one is for a trail maintenance, 1 full-time person for the number of trails we have out there. So one unique and creative way that's less expensive is a job that we call 7-monther in the city. You work 7 months, April through October, to help supplement those 2 with the growing need of trails. We've added this trail out in front of this building on MLK. We've added the Carl Voss Trail. We've added trails on University Avenue in front of Wayland Golf Course in the last year. It takes staff to maintain those things.
A lot of stuff to digest in one night. I'm sure that tonight we receive and file, but I'm sure moving forward we may have some questions and stuff. I thought this was very thorough.
I'm curious about the other 8 projects.
Huh? What'd you
7
say?
of the 15, right, that you showed us?
You know,
The other 8.
absolutely. So as you might imagine, we have very passionate staff in all different parts of the operation. And so what we do, and I'm going to take my hat off for Richard's the quarterback of this process, but Jenny, Ron, and Matt, they come together and they're really good about not just defending their team's ideas. They sit down and, like you see, we have scoring tools we've developed on our own, in our own little process in Parks and Recreation. So those things, I didn't bring that list with me, just they didn't rise to the top as far as the top needs. We'll look at the citizen satisfaction survey. We'll look at your $100 exercise you did last year. We'll have lots of tools in our tool bucket to look at things. We look at Live Des Moines. We look at Guide Des Moines, the overall comp plan for the city. If they couldn't make their way out of those discussions and those tools, they got put aside. And we tell our team, don't get disappointed and don't get frustrated, because there's a lot of things that have waited a decade to get added to the system. Just 4 years ago, we didn't have a natural resource team in the Parks Department. And now that's a small team that goes out and does all the different woodland restoration and the rain gardens and the prairies that we do. So eventually those things, I can get you that list, those things will eventually make their way through the system. They just weren't the top priorities.
And a couple comments and maybe kind of a question. Most of my tenure here on the board, most years we end up, or you end up, with a budget that's smaller than the year before. And so you're always having to cut some. And some years those cuts have been more painful than others. A few years ago, I know there was a loss of it as a planning position. It's primarily a grant writer.
Got that one back last year.
We did get that back?
Yep. We
Okay.
had about 6 months under that person's belt, so that, thanks to the council and the park board working together and the Friends board, that position is now back. But the demands for services, that'd be another position that we'd look at, because they're better than neutral. They actually make money for the department.
Well, and that's my question is that a lot of these programs can, or a lot of their activities can be funded through grant writing essentially, and it seems to me our capacity to write the grants is not equal to what's out there that we could potentially get. And it's more than one park planner position we've lost over the years. Is there ever thought about trying to get more staffing for grant writing? And
We've looked at like a fund development position in the past, and I think that would be kind of more of a generic but catch-all that could do grants. The demand of more facilities and more projects, as you see right now with the 1 cent sales tax, that there wasn't earmarks for specific park projects, but it opened up capacity in the other funding for parks projects. So the demand's out there, and we're behind now again because infrastructure has started to outlive its life expectancy, so we're seeing those things come due faster. Plus, we're seeing a higher demand from the public on trails, playgrounds, etc. So yes, long answer in a short way is there's always going to be a need for more planning help. The way that we use them today, the way they generate revenue. But there also is, on the other side of that, is every time we build something new, we don't have any staff to maintain it. So it's a balancing act. It's definitely a good comment, though.
the other thing is I'm anticipating from what I'm seeing that we're not expecting to see a budget cut for this coming fiscal year.
At this point in the process, and I remind everybody that we still have months to go. The city staff has been assigned by the city manager to get all their documents in a row. And now the council is starting to work with the city manager. He's bringing them in small groups to talk to them about priorities to make sure he's on the right page. Budget has to be adopted before March 15th. That's the state law. I usually tell everybody, I've been here long enough now to tell them that, you know, right after the holiday season, mid to late January, the picture becomes a lot more clear of where we're going. So stay tuned, be a part of the process, go to your public budget meetings. You guys always do a wonderful job of that already. Communicate, that's your job as appointees by different council members, and communicate with your council member, not just what Parks and Rec, keep your Park and Rec hat on, but also you're all great citizens, you're all involved in many other things outside of this, so tell them what the priorities are.
Anything else?
I'm curious, if all of these justice areas were fully funded, what would you be asking for as an increase?
Oh, there'd be plenty. There's a lot of parks in a lot of these areas, and we could, when Rebecca sends a presentation out, we could send that report out as well, just to kind of show you. We've not gathered a number like that.
Oh, okay.
So we don't know for sure, but there's plenty of needs in those areas as well.
Okay, anything else? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor to receive and file?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, Richard, very thorough. Well, we have a very special guest. And since it's just 4 staff and an individual person, I think we can narrow that down. We had 100 people. We had 100 people here, and they got scared of the weather. Chris, come on up. We invited Chris to. This would be the final park board meeting that we would have, where Councilman Coleman would be still on the council because we don't have one in December. And I can tell you, and I know that everyone might have a comment, but I can tell you, we're all advocates because of our position on the park board. But as a council person and just as a parent and a citizen of Des Moines, you have been so much of an advocate over the years, going way back. So I want to tell you, Chris, you've spearheaded a lot of programs, you've supported us in a lot of ways, and you've done a great job, and you will definitely be missed.
I can.
Thank you, George.
I'd like to echo that. I know you got lots to say, but I just want to tell you one last time.
to say. I brought a
good.
PowerPoint.
Good.
No,
you brought a
I
PowerPoint? That's
No, I
good.
didn't. You're ready to go.
No, I just want to tell you thanks on behalf of our team, the men and women that work here. There would be a lot of no this or that if Chris Coleman wasn't on the city council. Let me just give you a couple highlights. There would be probably no county soccer. It took somebody very brave in an elected leader position to say, let's go spend the millions of dollars to build this vision that we all know today how successful that is. But it was hard because there's always competing policy out there with police and fire and public works and stormwater improvements. We would have no bathrooms right now that are nice and new because of Chris. We'd have no spray ground program. Right. The list goes on and on and on. Chris sat up at a diocese just like this with his colleagues for, he'll tell you a little bit, I always mess this up, but north of 20 years already, right?
Yep.
And at every step of the way, he was there being our biggest cheerleader, our biggest advocate, and all the time being a council member trying to balance all the needs, and especially at times when it wasn't popular to invest in parks and recreation because of all the other tough things that the city was trying to take care of. And my hat's off to you. You've been the greatest friend, personally and professionally, and you've been a good mentor, a good advocate, and I know everybody behind you thinks the same, and our team does too downstairs, because Chris shows up at our events behind the scenes, never asked to speak, never asked to be, recognized, if you will. You have to almost make him do it, so he does it for the right reasons. I want to tell you thanks on behalf of all of us.
Other comments?
I'll make a couple comments. One, and Chris and I have known each other a long time, ever since he's been on council, and he would be one of the first people I would call when I'd see something that I didn't think it was fair, and I can be kind of spicy in my comments, and
Spicy?
nine times out of 10, I'm contacting Chris is to complain about something, and I'll be darned, he still takes my calls. So.
Well, Lloyd's usually right. It's not the spicy emails, but he's usually right. One of those was you and Paula ganged up on me. Paula Feltner was on the board for a long time. I think you probably have her spot, Steve. And the city manager announced that we were going to spend $750,000 to tear down the Green Bridge, the Jackson Street Bridge, and it was Lloyd and Paula that put it together, and luckily I was in a position where I could call the city manager and say, you got to give him 20 minutes to make this pitch. And we met at Java Joe's. I think it was just maybe the 4 of us, maybe 5 of us. Were you there that day, Ben? Yep. And had a little meeting and said, we think if you just spend the $750 that you want to spend tearing it down, we could save it. And that was another great project that wouldn't have happened without creative, daring people on the Parks Board. Can I say a couple of things?
After this, you can. We did get together and we took up a collection, and we had a new car out here for you.
I need one.
But then we realized you're limited to $1.50.
Oh.
So we're going to get you a Burger King. Go ahead, sir.
I got several random thoughts, but I want to tell this to you. I would have never run for city council if it wasn't for our parks. I really wasn't like that fired up over R60 zoning or 48 or 64-inch sewer pipes through the city, but I was really fired up about the way that our parks took care of people, and I've tried to never forget that. I'll give you a couple of dates. 1978, I was 12. Fast forward to 1997, 21 years later. And now go 22 years after that to 1999. Here's the dates. 1978, I was at Ashby Park, and the staff that used to work in all of our parks and do programming I went every day. I grew up across the street from Ashby Park. I mean, there was never a day I wasn't there. We had 6 kids. That was basically my mom's babysitter to kick us out. But it was, it was just a different day, and it was fantastic. But I went to Greece with a field trip of just the park friends, however the Parks Department organized it back then. And it was only 21 years later that I announced I was running for city council. And now it's been 22 years almost since then, since I announced. So I've lived more of my life as a city council person than I did from age 8 to running. And this job has changed me a lot. Luckily, it hasn't in some ways. We have really good people that work for the city. And there can't be a better city in the world to do my job as a city council person, because there's hardly ever a day that city staff don't make us look really, really good. And we're really lucky. And your department, the park and rec effort of our city, is unique. I was clicking through all the departments. I don't think there's any other departments that in my, if I stayed till March, it would be 22 years. So, 21 3/4 years. I don't think any other department's only had 2 directors in that period of time. We've had a lot of stability. And here's something that probably doesn't get talked about at your table, but you want to know something? Cities around Iowa and most of our suburbs pay damn good money. And this guy gets calls every other week throughout the year to go make more money and have an easier job. But he does it, and he and Tripp came back over and over again because he has great partners in the park board that give him kind of the legs and fuel to do really cool things that he couldn't do in X city west of here, And I'm really proud that he's here. So as much as I would like to compliment Ben and his team, I want to beg you to continue to be his partner. Make our staff feel great about all that they're accomplishing and help them accomplish even more. The Parks Board has been unique in my tenure because you've really been a working board. You do more than just show up and, rifle through an agenda. But in between, well, you got DJs and active people and bikers and, it's fantastic. So I compliment the history and the culture of the Park Board because it's led us to great stability and great things in our Parks Department. I worked at one of those parks. The Parks team knows I say this a lot, but I worked my way through college for 2 years, getting on a bike in Beaverdale, biking down through the old Target and coming up the trail to work at Union Park. That experience changed me forever. My view of vulnerable people changed entirely. And my view of the parks changed entirely too, because I knew that parks in our city were the great equalizer. You're probably like me, where a lot of people we know have their fun at the lake house or at Adventureland or on a trip to Mexico. But about 3/4 of the people that live in our city have a good day when then they can go as a family and have a wonderful day at one of our parks. And without that, their quality of life would be much, much different. And that's why the work that you do as Park Board volunteers is so important. I'm so sad about the current election period that we're in, because I think too many of the candidates have just fallen to the easiest sound bites that the pollsters tell them to say. And you've probably gotten the polls, the questions they ask. I've gotten polled, and then they all of a sudden turn into a commercial or a flyer. And it's sad to me because nobody's talking about really what makes our community the heart of it. And I'm sad that we haven't talked more about the great park system that we have in this campaign, because you guys deserve these campaign seasons to celebrate what you've done. And so be active, be aggressive in talking about the parks. There are a couple other boards in the city over the last 12 months that have decided to get more active politically in this way. My appointees call and say, will you have coffee? I want to bring you up to speed. You're going to hear these 7 priorities that we've worked on. We want your buy-in for them, or if you have an issue with them, come talk to me. So I would encourage each of you to foster that relationship with the person that appointed you, that you kind of represent on this board, and it will pay off. So I'm really thrilled about our parks. I can't wait to find ways to get involved. We've made some hard decisions over time that oftentimes the staff didn't agree with. At least some staff, in the parks, but it's kind of transformed it. So we've kind of gotten a focus. I think big decisions that we've made over time, privatizing our golf courses, freed up hundreds of thousands of dollars for other park programming and expenses. Privatizing, in a sense, the partnership with the Zoo Foundation, the Botanical Center. Some of these big spaces and big facilities were a drain on the park's budget, and we found ways to solve that to free up money for other things. And I hope you continue to push to make those relationships successful. They keep feeling like they're going to fall apart, and that's a bad deal for the people of our city. So I want to say thank you. I was thrilled that George asked me to come out. We have a great team at the city, all throughout it. But our Parks Department does amazing things. And I was all 5 of my kids, well, let me see, 4 of my 5 kids that can work so far have worked for the Parks Department. And sometimes people give me a little razzing, like, oh, you got your kid a job at the city. And I'm always like, not one other person was in line for that. And if they weren't there working, that park wouldn't open, or the pool would have to shut down earlier. And it's created them empathetic souls too, for the plight of a lot of people in our city. And I'm just really proud of all you do, and thanks for always listening to me when I had a priority or wanted you to do something. I'm going to be one sad boy on January 1st because I love what I do. It's been a chance of a lifetime. And I hope you welcome my successor and make great things happen into the future. And if there's ever a way that I can help you individually or work on a project with you, which would be a blast, please call on me because I'll be lonely. So, thank you. George, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Well, I'm going to give you a standing ovation.
Hey, one other thing. The last park planning thing I went to was at Chesterfield. None of you have been at Chesterfield. I'll bet money none of you have. You drive close to it, Jim.
Yeah, I think I've been there.
I've been.
We got a grant, and I've kind of lost track of that, but it's like on my bucket list of things to make sure that I do something positive. I hope that's something.
It's coming forward. Jenny, what do you think? What's your timeline? Put you on the spot here. Be conservative. Before Chris leaves council, you think, or no?
A meeting and a half. Well, I hope the park board embraces it. It's a poor area of our city that doesn't have a lot going for it, and this could be a real positive jolt. And the team's, worked hard to find some money to do the planning. So
it's moving forward.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
You leave your fingerprint on a lot of items. Thank you very much.
I've had a blast.
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for the invite. I'm going to go talk about police officers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Moody?
All right.
Parks and Recreation holiday specials.
Yes, Matt's going to give you the holiday specials. If you're looking for that last minute gift idea, he's got a couple ideas for you.
Okay.
Chair Davis, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Matt Kalsovich, Recreation Manager, thank you for this opportunity to share with you what we're calling actually seasonal promotions. I'll start tonight with our pool pass sales. So this is something we've done the last few years to offer a special discount on our annual pool passes. You can see on this chart we have what our regular fee is when people would buy that during the season or just prior. We also have an early bird special that runs basically in the month of April. But we have this holiday special, and that's kind of where the name of the presentation originally came from, but we've that's evolved into a little bit more that I'll share with you here. But first and foremost, the pool pass sales have been very good. Last year was a tremendous success, big leap forward, over 100 pool passes sold in this time, and that was a record. We also have listed our GRASP rate. Many of you have heard about that scholarship or incentive program or discount program that we have. That includes many more things other than the pool passes, but you can see the dramatic reduction in rate for that as well. But for people who don't qualify for that, this holiday special runs November 28th through December 31st. And if people have questions about access with the pool pass, recommend they email directly to that one on the screen, aquatics@dmgov.org. And this deal is only available online at dmparks.org. Next, we have our golf passes, and we talked a little bit about that here tonight in regards to the growth and evolution of our golf pass, or the universal pass that we're working with a couple of partners with. But we wanted to highlight the purchase of a gift card at blank golf course that would be converted into a pass or a badge on their first visit of the season. And you can see the range of passes, badges there that we offer, the PAR badge, including a cart, full access 7 days a week. We also have individual options in that 900 to 1300 range, as well as options for couples, seniors, and juniors. So just a great variety of opportunity for people who love to golf, and certainly something we think is a great value. All passes, or badges as we've referred to them, include Waveland, Blank, Grandview, and Jester. And then new in 2020, again, a topic we've discussed here, the addition of Terrace Hills, subject to council approval. And again, thank you to the Park and Recreation Board for championing that and moving that along to the next part of the process.
We're glad you championed that, because we would have had to change our PowerPoint midstream here today, so.
Next, we have our holiday wreaths at the cemeteries. These are $50 each and would be on display from November 29th to December 23rd. 24-inch wreath, of which you can see a picture similar to what we'll have. Again, natural pine cones, holly berries, and free placement in the Des Moines Municipal Cemeteries. Anybody who wants to get in touch with this program would call the number there on your screen to get additional information. Purchases can actually be done now that November 29th to December 3rd timeframe is the range when they'd be on display.
Matt, could I ask you to back up to that golf pass?
Of course.
The senior badge, over 62, 650 to 950. Now, what's the rate? What does that
Thank you, Sam, for bringing that up. That's a great clarification. So the range of the badges typically are about either weekday use only or expanded opportunity 7 days a week. Yeah, it's really about your golf interest and having a range of opportunity then for what would fit your specific golf need. And we know we have populations that are interested in both. Wonderful question. Thank you for backing me up on that one. My apologies for missing that. A new one that we wanted to add in this year was some historic parks image art. And some of you have seen these out at several events that you've supported for both Park and Rec and with the Friends of Des Moines Parks. But these are done through Boz prints. And the images on the right, you can see one of Grays Lake, one of Union Park, the Rocket Slide, and our 4 original parks. John Bosley is a local artist and is actually located in Valley Junction. If you visit his website, bozprints.com, he's offering things in that $3 to $75 range. It can be anything from a postcard up to a full-size 36-inch poster. And if you visit that website, you search Des Moines, and you can see the full range of options and wonderful pieces that he has for sale celebrating our park system. One that we brought to you last year as well was our iconic Park and Recreation t-shirts offered through Twin Forks Trading Company. Again, some images there on the right-hand side of Grays Lake, Ewing, the Rocket Slide. So another way to show off some of the wonderful features and amenities of our park system. Starting back in 2017, local designer Kelsey Bias, and some of you know Kelsey through his involvement with the Friends of Des Moines Parks, anywhere between $26 and $36 each, depending on the type of shirt. And Kelsey's actually offered a code, Iowa Parks, for an additional 20% discount. Another bonus of a purchase through Twin Forks is 10% of the sales go back to Des Moines Parks and Recreation for anything purchased that are specific to Des Moines Parks and Rec. So those shirts there and other items in his inventory, and to see the whole list or display of everything that they offer, visit twinforkstradingco.com and also search Des Moines.
Is that the only venue those are available through right now?
As far as online, you mean?
Are there not physically anywhere in Des Moines, but it's just this online access?
He's had some at Shields. Kelsey's also on our Friends of Des Moines Parks board. But he's had some of these at Shields, and that's all I know of right now. You can go to our website, though, and it'll link you right over to, if you go to dmparks.org.
Correct, and actually both Twin Forks Trading Company and Boz Prints have a direct link off of our city webpage. Last but not least, wanted to mention some information about the Friends of Des Moines Parks and perhaps the gift of membership. And so they have membership options starting at $50. And again, we like to highlight that they have nearly $1 million in project contributions slotted for 2019 and 2020. If you are interested in more information or getting connected or connecting someone with a membership, contact Rex Coble, Chair, at the email there on the screen. Or you can also visit their website that's listed, friendsofdmparks.org, just to get more information about the organization, see more about projects, or find out more in regards to the details of membership. Certainly tremendous supporters of our department and do a lot of wonderful things for us in the community, and we like to take this opportunity to share information about how to get connected more with the Friends if that's of interest. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of that quick information with you. I'd be happy to try and answer any of the questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to committee reports. Andrea?
We have not met since our last meeting, so I have no updates at this time.
Okay. Cindy or Mr. Pugh?
I haven't been to a golf meeting for a couple of years. So I'm waiting until next spring.
Get back on the committee.
Okay.
And Cindy and I are, right?
Well, I'm sure you'll do well. And then we go to trails. Mr. Ballard?
We have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is December the 9th.
Okay. Well, I'm sure starting the new year, we'll have a lot of information regarding the budget and committees. Any closing comments, anyone?
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Dan, this week in the newspaper, I was reading about a deer reduction program in some of the city parks, and I'm all for that. I really am. I think they've become a pest. They really have. But the word that stood out to me was sharpshooting. Are they going to allow rifles in these areas?
So we've had a program for many years that's managed by the DNR that cities can participate in. And what it is a archery program. And we have safety protocols that we've tested by ordinance that's been set by our city council. They have to shoot from an elevated stand into an area that's not adjacent to any park infrastructure like a trail, a shelter. It's been going on for more than a decade, and I'm proud to report it's a program that we don't do a lot of marketing on because there is either you understand why we need to do it, or you just don't like the fact because you have an animal rights passion. So it's a needed, necessary tool for cities to have.
But I thought it was going to be rifles.
Nope, not the city
okay,
limits.
it's all bow hunting.
Was it Iowa City was going to try that? Not in Des Moines, I can tell you that right now.
How many do we kill a year?
Harvest 100 about? 100, 120. The numbers are going down, which means that we're doing a good job because the number of hunters aren't going down. It's just the number of does. There's science behind all this. We could give you a presentation. We just try not to draw a lot of attention to it on purpose. Not because it's illegal. It's just something that's a tough story to tell. But I can tell you, I get a lot of calls like Sam saying, can you please hunt this park? Or we also hunt private citizens' property based on its size and based on that neighbor getting everybody within a certain jurisdiction around that vicinity of the spot in that person's backyard, for example, to sign off. And we hunt we connect hunters to a lot of private properties too. They have to prove a proficiency test. They have to have a current hunting license for the DNR, and they have to have a $10 permit for us so we know where they're at and when they're at those spots. So it's very much regulated. Ron, did I get any of that wrong? See, I listen.
Any other comments? I want to wish everyone a very family-oriented Thanksgiving and a very family-oriented Christmas. I think that's very important. And with that, we will
Get your poinsettias.
Oh, yes, poinsettias over there, and whatever you don't want, I'll absolutely take because they're beautiful. And we're looking for a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll see you next year. Thank you.
Thanks for a great year, board. We appreciate it.